Welcome to Mobile Health Diagnostics, where we're going to be taking a look at the quick start guide for the dosimeter setup. The first thing that I want to take a look at is the actual kits themselves. These are the ones that you're going to get the carrying case that have all of the equipment you'll need in them. One of the forms that you'll find inside is the actual inventory screen. So let's go through that now. Here's the actual case in full with all of the components. We're going to be going through them one by one. The first thing that I want to take a look at is the actual dock itself, which is located right here. Let's pull that out and take a closer look at one of the components that you're going to want to be very aware of. Inspect your dock and take a look at these areas specifically. If those are cracked or damaged, it may lead to problems down the road. The next item we want to look at is the AC300. This is a calibrator that we're going to be using to make sure our dosimeters are working properly. Notice the serial number on the back, as well as the silver sticker on the side that gives us our most recent calibration date. There's also a cap up front that ensures we have a good seal with the dosimeters themselves. Let's power it on. You can see that it's at 114 decibels at 1000 hertz, which is correct. In this pocket we have all of our connecting cords and power adapters. Easy enough? These are the actual individual dosimeters themselves. In taking a look at it, we'll want to pull the windscreen off to look at it. Don't grab the screen. That may cause damage. Grabbing the red ring, you can twist that off and expose the microphone underneath to verify that it's there and undamaged. You can locate there. If it's not there, take a look inside of the windscreen. Sometimes when they come off, they do end up in there. Let's power that on and just take a look at the screen itself. This does have power, and we'll wait for the booting up. Everything appears normal. This is the actual dock. We're going to look at getting these charged up. Beware of the alligator clip at the bottom. That can also cause problems when trying to get power. Set that on the dock and then give it a nice firm pressure until you hear an audible click. Looking at the LED, you'll see a blinking red light. That actually means it is charging. Sometimes these don't seat properly, which I'll demonstrate now. Verify with the LED that it's not showing power. Just click it back in and make sure you have a blinking red light. Power them on when you need to cycle them to a computer. In order to connect them to a computer, you'll just need to take the cord from the case in the previously identified slot and plug the small end into the dock themselves and the standard USB into the USB connection of your laptop. Next, we're going to take a look at the actual data management software itself. This is the landing screen. We'll be using this to do any of our pre-day setups as well as our post-day data download. And it's called Detection Management Software. In the lower left-hand side here, you can see these are the serial numbers in the past of jobs that I've done. We're going to be going to the setup portion first. This is where you're going to start pretty much every single one of these when you're setting up for success. On the left side of the screen, you can see this is the docking bay that we have plugged into the computer. I only have one dosimeter currently plugged in. That serial number is represented here. You can use the refresh at the top in order to get the status of the dock at any given time, but make sure that box is checked. If that's not checked, anything that we're going to be doing here won't actually be applied to the dosimeters. The first thing that I like to do when I get them is to make sure that that instrument is cleared. You can do that with that red X that was just clicked on the download portion. And then at the bottom, this timeline window is what's going to tell you if what you're doing with the individual dosimeters is successful. Generally, I like to expand that window out and then I watch that timeline feed to make sure that any device changes that I'm making are indeed successful. The first thing we're going to want to do is go over to the time. I generally use current system time. You can also set it to a specific time if that's what you need to do, typically if you don't like moving your time. Getting the time updates the system with whatever the current time is, but we're going to set the date time on our dosimeters. So we'll hit that button and then watch in the timeline below that the time was retrieved and applied successfully to the dosimeter that we have currently checked. Next, we'll be moving over to the individual setup. These values should really never need to be changed. The only thing you may mess with is the actual recording time, which changes to capture the 80% of a shift. We're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom and we're going to look at the get and set configurations. Getting a configuration retrieves a configuration that is currently applied to the dosimeter. So we'll click that. You can see that apply into the timeline that says exactly what's happening. But before every job, what I like to do is hit set configuration, which is going to apply the above table values to our individual dosimeters. We're waiting in the bottom left timeline, and we can see that it's sending that configuration to the bay, and it was successfully applied. Now we know that that dosimeter is specifically ready. Let's get it calibrated prior to test day. That's where we're going to be using the AC300. Powering that on, we're again going to see 114 decibels at 1000 Hertz. We're going to take our powered on dosimeter with the windscreen removed and marry the two together. This process can take several seconds, but we'll just wait on this specific screen until we see the value change to calibrate, which we can see here. The far right button is how we'll enter that screen. Give that a press, and we can see the current calibration is 112. Using the arrow keys, we're going to adjust that value until it's 114 decibels. Once we've reached that value, we're just going to confirm it by hitting the far right button one more time. And you can see now that our calibration is now being set. We'll remove that equipment. And if it's going to be a long time, I would recommend you turn it off by holding that same button again. Reapply the windscreen. We want to make sure that we're not losing those. And depending on how many dosimeters, you'll want to do this several more times. Let's take a look at how we actually want to put that onto a person. First, we want to make sure that the dosimeter itself is powered on. Once it's been fully booted up, you can see that far left button is a play and stop button. If you look very closely in the top right, you can see that there's a square, which means stop, and a red LED. If I hold down the play button for 3 seconds, it has now entered recording mode. That square has now turned into an arrow, which is complemented by a green LED. Now we're recording. When taking a dosimeter and placing it on, the top alligator clip will oftentimes go against a seam on the shirt. That will provide with the best grip. You can see that I'm attaching it directly to the seam of my shirt and then using the bottom one to attach for stability. This should be on the outermost garment. Now that that's on, we're ready to go. Notes to collect from dosimeters so you have a best chance for your report later. Make sure you have all of the serial numbers for the calibrator and the dosimeters. Make sure you know the last date they were calibrated. Get the name and title of the employee wearing the dosimeter, as well as what they do on average from day to day. And finally, get your pre and post calibration values. A post calibration will work almost exactly the same as a pre-calibration. We'll grab our AC3100, as well as the dosimeter. Powering that back on to 114, there's only one small change that we'll be making to what our normal process is. Removing the red screen as well, and entering the calibration mode on the individual dosimeter. We'll wait for that to come up. Instead of manipulating the values back to 114, we're only going to be entering in whatever that true value is. This provides a point of reference for how far out of calibration a dosimeter has gone through the day. So when we have that, just hit enter and record that value for your dosimeter notes. Now that we've done that, again, we'll repeat that entire process for each dosimeter that was placed into service. Once our job is done, we're going to be moving on to the actual data download. So we'll be entering back into data management. We'll be refreshing to make sure that our dosimeter is showing in the dock. You can see that it's on the far left there, and make sure that the box is checked for downloading purposes. This other tab shows any history that we've had. So you can see that I'm going to go down and again activate that box to apply any changes that I'm making to the dosimeter itself. From there, we'll move down to download. A separate box may come up that says, "Would you like to clear the instrument data on completion?" Always say no. This is our only methodology of recovering any lost data if something were to get corrupt along the way. So make sure that we're retaining that data, and the only time it's being cleared is when you are just starting a job. Once the data has been downloaded, it will bring us to this area where we're going to see the individual serial numbers that were downloaded. Double-clicking that value will bring up the individual report, or hit Quick Report in the bottom right. Our standard format can be found on the far right, where we're going to be changing to Dosimeter Report number 2. This is the standard format that we'll be using. Once you're done reviewing any of the data that you need, you'll be printing that to Microsoft PDF and naming that file the same as the serial number that the data was pulled from. For reference, that can be seen in the upper tab. You'll again repeat this process for each of the dosimeters that were placed into service for this individual work order. That is everything you would need to know to complete a dosimetry-only work order. Thank you so much for paying attention to the entirety of this video, and if you have any immediate questions, make sure you direct those to your immediate supervisor. Thank you again.